Namaste. Today I will talk about a subject called Purusha Suktam. Purusha Suktam, most of us might be knowing that it is a prayer. It is almost like a prayer. When you go to a temple, you listen to that Purusha Sukta. Wherever you go, almost every temple, in every puja, this Purusha Sukta is something which is recited on good, bad, and all occasions. So why are we talking about that Purusha Sukta today? What is its importance? That is because one particular mantra from that sukta has created a lot of havoc in the Indian society. One particular mantra. Rigveda has more than 10,000 suktas, and among those 10,000 suktas, there is only one, not suktas, so 10,000 mantras. In those 10,000 mantras, there is only one mantra which has created a lot of problem in the Hindu society, and that is from this suktam, Purusha Sukta. So that is how this sukta has gained importance. And this has been studied by so many scholars and then interpreted. And then probably when the British or the Europeans saw this particular sukta, they must have felt highly delighted or elated. Oh, we find one loophole here in Hinduism. We can, in order to break the Hindu society. So probably they must have felt elated when they saw this Purusha Sukta. So let us see what it is. So here, the first thing we have to know is that our sages, the rishis who composed this all these Purusha Suktas, or who had a vision of these Suktas, our tradition says that they did not compose, they did not write like a poet who sits down and writes, but then in their deep meditation, in their state of meditation, they had a vision of all these mantras. These are eternal truths, which they had a vision of these things, and then they told their sishyas. They did not write down because there was no writing at the time. It was only a Shruti Parampara from teacher to student and father to son, so in that manner. So they recited to their students. So when these sages they visualized, they also saw a particular pattern in the whole universe. They saw a pattern that the whole universe is one organism, is one living organism. Because the moment we are born, we are dependent on the five elements. Five elements means the air, water, fire, and earth. Earth means the food. So like that, we are dependent on the external universe. So what exactly is man, and what is this external world, and what is the cause for this external world? This was something which agitated the minds of these people, and then they saw an organic unity in all these things. So naturally, they they also thought about or questioned about what is the nature of the supreme reality. And about the supreme reality, they did not say like religion normally says. Religion says, oh, this is what my religion says, or this is what my somebody who had some communication with God, he said, yes, there is something called heaven, there is a person sitting there. Our sages did not say like that. They applied the philosophical tools, philosophical methods in order to know what is the truth. And they said what we call supreme reality is not some person who is sitting there somewhere in heaven, but it is an impersonal entity. This particular point I told in my earlier talks also on the same website. So what is this supreme reality? It is an impersonal entity which is of the nature of infinite consciousness. And this consciousness is something which is manifesting as the whole universe. And when this consciousness is manifesting as matter, they also visualized one intermediate principle. That intermediate principle, they called it uh, Hiranyagarbha. Let us forget about that name. They called it a Hiranyagarbha. But then, how does this consciousness and this matter, manifesting into matter, if we want to visualize, if we want to have a figure, a figure, a visualization, you visualize a ocean, and in that ocean, a huge wave emerges. So, in this huge ocean of consciousness, in the same way, in the huge ocean of consciousness, there is a huge wave which thinks, yes, I have got an independent entity, it develops a notion of I. So that notion of I, the first notion of I is what is called Hiranyagarbha, in that absolute consciousness which is infinite. In infinity, there cannot be any notion of I, because infinity, there is nothing other than infinity. So there cannot be any notion of I. So it's only when something smaller comes, when something smaller takes place or happens in it, then a notion of I comes. So that Hiranyagarbha is somewhat like that wave, a huge wave which has emerged in that ocean of consciousness. So that Hiranyagarbha is what is described in this Purusha Sukta. Purusha, the very meaning of Purusha is Puri Shete iti Purusha. That is, Puri means all our body mind complex. You see, every one of us has got a body mind complex. This body mind complex covered by this skin and all that. So this is called a Puram. Puram is a city. Like a Puram has got several gates and whatnot. So our body also has got certain gates. There are certain gates in the head. There are certain gates in other parts of the body. So like that, there are Puri Navad Navadware Pure Dehi calls Sri Krishna. Navadwaram Puram. It is called a Puram which with 11 with 9 gates. In another visualization, it is called Ekadapuram, Ekadasadwaram. So they have counted 2 more. Anyway, whether it is 9 gates or 11 gates. So there is all these gates are the doors of perception, the doors of knowledge, the doors through which we see the external world, we feel the external world. So these are the things. But anyway, this Puram is something which is pervaded by the same infinite consciousness. When that infinite consciousness is the only thing which exists, and that thing alone is manifesting as the whole universe, then you and I, we are not different from that universe. You and I are very much in that universe, or in that particular we can't even say a part, because in the infinity there cannot be any parts. We are just that infinity only. If we really talk, if we have to talk the reality, we are that infinity only. In that infinity only, we feel that we are separate. So that is what it is. So in this, all these, all the living beings, let us say, all the living beings, they do have some what is called mind. They also have some sense organs. So all these minds and sense organs, where have they come from, and what is the activating principle for all these minds? There is only one activating principle for all these minds, and that activating principle is called Purusha. Puri Shete iti Purusha. Puri means in every body, in every mind, in every body-mind complex. That is what activates our minds and sense organs. My sense organs, I am able to see, I am able to hear, I am able to sense, I am able to taste. So all these things, all these sense organs of all the living beings, not only of mine, the antahkarana, or the mind of a snake, the mind of a rabbit or a pig or a mosquito, whatever it is. You visualize any being. You visualize any being, all the uh, thinking process, the entire thinking process or thinking equipment or apparatus which that animal has, it is illuminated by only one particular source, and that particular source is what is called Purusha. So that is how this Purusha Sukta starts. So our sages had a sort of, we can even say fancy, or rather they had a way, or rather they had a tendency to visualize the whole universe as one entity, so that the person who is meditating on that will develop oneness with the whole universe. He will not feel, no, I am separate and then I have to have I have to grab as much as possible. A person will not feel like that. He feels one with all the beings. He will develop some love for all the beings. Yes, even if he is using nature. For example, using nature means, for example, I am breaking a tree, cutting a tree, or I am doing something else with some natural resource. Then I am aware of the harm which I am causing, and whether I am actually using it to my limited need, or am I asking more from the nature. So that way, if you are feeling one with the nature, one with the whole universe, then you are a responsible citizen in the whole universe. So for that reason, our people had visualized very often, not only once in this particular thing, but very often in several places, we see this sort of visualization of this. For example, we see in the Gita also, in the Gita, what is called Vishwa. Vishwam is the whole universe in one form. You see that Lord Krishna shows that Vishwarupa. Similarly, he shows that Vishwarupa in some other place in the same Mahabharata, in the Kaurava Sabha, in that in the court of these Kauravas. He also shows that this shows that the cosmic form of his. So like that, we see not only that here in Mahabharata, we also see this description in Srimad Bhagavatam and in the Upanishads and in the Vedas. Also, we find in the Vedas also in the Krishna Yajurveda. Also, there is another description which is quite similar to what is shown here. But here, one extra mantra has come into this, which is not there in Krishna Yajurveda or in other places. One extra mantra which has come is about how these so-called varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, who are they and what is their place in this whole universe. So that is where the whole problem has come, and that is why we are now studying it. So, okay, let us see what exactly is the how the text goes. The text starts with one verse called one mantra. We can't say shloka. There is a difference between shloka and a mantra. Shloka is something which has come later in later Puranas and later literature. Mantra is something which is there in the Samhita portion of the Vedas. The mantra starts like this. The first mantra says Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapad. Literally, it means that Purusha has got 1,000 heads and then 1,000 aksha means the sense organs and 1,000 feet. Can you visualize a person with 1,000 heads and then 1,000 indriya, sense organs, and then 1,000 feet? It will be a very, very grotesque figure, if at all we want to imagine. So we have to have a figurative meaning for this. What is the figurative meaning? 1,000 does not mean 1,000. In all the Vedic literature, whenever they say 1,000 or 100, it means infinity. Usually the word Sahasra only is there. Sahasra means infinity. Sahasra Shirsha means infinite number of. So the people who have written a commentary, there is one commentary for this very famous commentary is what is called Vidyaranya Bhashyam or Sayana Bhashyam. It is also called Sayanacharya Bhashyam or Vidyaranya Bhashyam. So there, that Acharya writes, some 14th century commentator, Sarva Prani Samashti Rupo Brahmanda Deho Viradakya. Sarva Prani Samashti Rupa. Sarva Prani. That is all the beings, all the living beings, all the living beings. This is the aggregate form, what we call this Purusha, is the aggregate form which we are now visualizing. And Sahasra Shabdasya Upalakshanat Anantaihi Shirobhihi, Anantaihi Shirobhihi, that means infinite number of heads. Heads means the mind's thinking capacity. Yani Sarva Praninam Shiramsi, Tani Sarvanyapi, Tad Dehantah Pati Tatvat, Tadiyanyeva iti. Whatever, Yani Sarva Praninam Shiramsi, whatever heads are there for all the living beings, all those heads of all the living beings, they belong to him. So that means I am now talking and then my head belongs to, is a part and parcel of that Purusha. And my wife sitting somewhere in another room, her head also is part and parcel of the Virat Purusha. You who are listening, your head also forms part and parcel of the Virat Purusha, not only now, but in past, present and future. So that is what the next mantra says, Purusha evedagam sarvam yad bhutam yaccha bhavyam. Yad bhutam yaccha bhavyam. Yad bhutam means whatever was past and whatever is coming. Whatever is existing now. Purusha evedagam sarvam. Yes, what all we see, we have seen, we saw earlier and what we are going to see later. The whole thing is Purusha. That Purusha is the material cause and also the intelligent cause for the entire universe. And uta amrutatvasya. So this Bhuta, Bhavishyat, Vartamana, all these column. So in all the three time frames, past, present, and future, what we see is that Purusha only, which is manifesting as all the living beings. All the beings, they just come and go, but that Purusha, that material exists forever. Then it goes on to describe. So in this particular suktam is a particular passage, let us say. We can't exactly say him. Him means it is a praise. Here we are not praising anybody. We are only visualizing the whole thing. We are only having a visualization of that whole thing. And because of that visualization, we are developing a broader sense of ourselves, a broader idea of ourselves. Instead of feeling that I am so and so, I am a limited person, I have got something, I have got a family, I have to earn money, and I have to grab this, that, etc. You are having a broader idea of, we are having a broader idea of ourselves. So that is the purpose of this. So here it goes on like that. There are 16 mantras in this Rigveda. This Purusha Sukta is there in all the Vedas. I forgot to tell you. It is there in the Rigveda, it is there in Shukla Yajurveda, it is there in Krishna Yajurveda, it is there in Samaveda, it is in Atharva Veda. In all the Vedas, it is there. But with some small changes. In Krishna Yajurveda, there are two extra mantras, but in all other places, it is same. Then the visualization, it goes on to say the gross body and the subtle body of that Virat Purusha. The Virat Purusha, the subtle body, that is the subtle body means the mind and sense organs, they constitute the subtle body. Gross body, even for us, is the physical body with the skin, with the bones, and then with the blood, the muscles, and whatnot. So if we talk about the gross body of that, it is all these rivers, hills, and then all the material we see, sun, moon, and whatnot, all that form the whole galaxies and whatnot. All those things, they form the physical body of that Virat Purusha. And all the intelligence, all the not exactly the intelligence, the instruments which are capable of receiving that intelligence. That is the mind and sense organs. So these are the things which form the subtle body. So this gross body is called Virat Purusha and the subtle body is called the Hiranyagarbha. So that is the hierarchy here. So here the description goes on like that. Initially, when all these sages, they tried to do a manasa yajna, that is a sort of mental yajna, means a sort of visualization only. In that visualization, they visualized all this sun, moon, everything in the whole universe as part and parcel of this. And in that, a question arises. When you go to the 11th mantra of the same passage, a question, somebody asks a question. Yat purusham yadadhuhu katidha vyakalpayan mukham kimasya kau bahu ka uru pada uchyate. So there he says, katidha vyakalpayan. In how many ways did they akalpayan, means in what manner they visualized, in what manner they visualized. So the commentator says, Yada Purusham Virat Rupam Vyadadhuhu Sankalpena Utpaditavantaha. It is not as though there is a particular Purusha there. It is not as though there is a physical form and then there is a particular person sitting there. It is a Sankalpa. It is a visualization. Sankalpa means just a visualization. Sankalpita Utpaditavantaha. Katidha Katibhi Prakaraihi Vyakalpayam Vividham Kalpitavantaha. Vividham Kalpitavantaha means Kalpana. You know the word Kalpana. Visualization. Vividham Kalpitavantaha. They visualized in several forms. Then asya purushasya mukham kim asit. When you are visualizing something, what is the face? The whole universe you are trying to fit into a body. Then what is the face? What are the shoulders? What is the trunk, and then what is the belly, and then what are the thighs, and what are the feet? So that sort of visualization is needed. So asya purushasya mukham kim asit, kau bahu abhutam. What were the shoulders? And ka uru, ka pada uchyate. And what exactly? How did they visualize? What are the feet and what are the thighs, and then what are the shoulders, and what is the body, and what is the head, etc. Head and also the mouth. Mukham. Mukham is mouth. Mukham, there is a word. The Sanskrit word called mukham has two meanings. Mukham also means the face and also the mouth. In Sanskrit, the mouth is actually mukham. Mukha and mouth, probably they are also cognate words. We do not know. So then the answer comes, Brahmanaha asya mukham asit. Brahmano asya mukham asit. Bahura janyah krutaha. Uru tadasya yadvaishyah. Padhyagam shudro ajayata. So the mantra goes like that. So then this is the most controversial mantra. Brahmanaha asya mukham asit. The Brahmana became the mouth. It does not say that Brahmin originated from the head of the Virat Purusha. It is not as though there is one huge person standing there, a colossal person who is standing there and then who stood there in the beginning. And from his head, all these Brahmanas came out and his shoulders. That sort of visualization, that sort of interpretation is given to us by unfortunately, our Western people. And it is being lapped up. It is being lapped up by us because we have not read this Purusha Sukta. We have not seen the spirit of this Purusha Sukta. Because all over the Vedic literature, everywhere in the Vedic literature, this sort of seeing the whole universe as one entity, it is something which is common. So here, Brahmanahasya Mukhamasit, Brahmin became the mouth. He does not even say became, it was Asit. Asit is the past tense for Asti. Asti means he is or that is. Asit means it was. Brahmana was the mouth. That is what it literally means. Brahmana asya mukhamasit bahu rajanya krutaha. And this Rajanya, the Kshatriya in the society, the person who is the warrior, he became he was visualized, Kalpitavantaha. That means Kalpitavantaha means he was visualized as the shoulders. And the Vaishya was visualized as Uru Tadasya Vaishya. Uru means the two thighs. The thigh, the Vaishya means the business community. In any society requires all these people, some thinking community, that intellectual leadership as we call. It may be communist intellectuals or right-wing intellectuals or left-wing intellectuals. They are intellectuals. So all these fellows, they are like the mouth. So then the business community, this business community is that is the support, that is the basic support for the whole body. So they are like the thigh. And the feet, they are supposed to move fast. So they are, yeah, Padhyam Shudro Jayata. Padhyam Shudro Jayata. Padhyam is either in Shashti, in Panchami Vibhakti or in Chaturthi Vibhakti. But here it has to be taken as Prathama, in the Prathama sense. That is what the later commentators have said. That is, the feet, Shudra is visualized as the legs. Legs or feet, let us say. Pada means feet also. So the Shudra is visualized as the feet. Brahmana was visualized as the mouth, or you can say mouthpiece also. And Kshatriya visualized as the shoulders. This thigh portion, the Vaishya was visualized as the thigh, and Shudra was visualized as the feet. So that is how it is. And later also, the visualization, it goes on like that. What is that? For example, Chandrama manaso jataha chaksho suryo ajayata. It says Chandrama, that is moon. Moon is associated with mind, because the mind, not exactly the mind, moon, we say heart. We draw some difference between the mind and the heart. Heart is a place for emotions, feelings, etc. But nowadays we know that, of course, heart and mind are so closely related. So, Chandrama Manaso Jataka, mind. Chandrama is the mind for that Virat Purusha. That is, mind is associated with all the emotions, feelings, and all nice, good, bad, and ugly, all types of feelings. Then that is why we say lunar, lunatic, all that in English literature also, the same thing exists. Then sun visualized as the eye. The sun we see is visualized as the eye because sun represents light. Light means intelligence, thinking. So thinking on one part and emotions on the other. So moon and the eye, moon and the sun. In some visualizations, moon and the sun are two eyes. Moon and the suns are two eyes of that Purusha. In some visualization, it is not exactly. It is not as though Purusha Sukta is the ultimate. It is not as though this is the only visualization, because some sage sits in meditation and he visualizes a particular visualization comes. Another sage in some other place visualizes in a slightly different way. So that is how we see some slight differences. So in this visualization, it is like this: sun is the mind, moon is the mind, and sun is the eyes. But in some other visualizations, both sun and the moon are like the two eyes. So anyway, then Mukhad Indrascha Agnischa, again from the mouth. Again, this mouth, it is representing Indra and Agni. Indra is the powerful ruler, and Agni also represents Vak. Our Vedic literature says, Agnihi Vak Bhutva Mukham Pravishat. Agni that I acquired in the form of Vak, in the form of speech, it entered the mouth. That means whatever we utter is somewhat like a fire. So that is the reason why we are supposed to be very careful with our words. So Mukhad Indrascha Agnischa. So Padhya Mukhad Indrascha Agnischa Pranad Vairajayata. Then Nabhya Asid Antariksham. Navi is the navel. Navi and navel again cognate words. From this navel, Antariksham, the intermediate space all around Earth and between Earth and what we visualize as heaven. So between these two, the Antariksham, the surrounding space, and then Shirshno, Dyaus Samartata, Shirsha is head. That Virat Purusha's head is the heaven. Then Padhyam Bhumihi, his feet, Virat Purusha's feet are the Bhumi. Virat Purusha's feet are also the Shudra, they are also the Bhumi. He is the man who is associated with earth also. He is the man who is associated with all the Bhumi. Then tatha lokagam akalpayan. Tadha lokagam akalpayan means they visualized the whole universe in that particular form. That is the 14th mantra. Lokan akalpayan. Akalpayan means they visualized like that. Then again in the 16th shloka, there are 16th mantra. The 16th mantra is the last mantra in the Rigveda version. So in this he says, Yajnana Yajnamayajanta Devaha. In that, what is the type of yajna? It is a manasa yajna. It is something which is, it is a meditative process. One meditative process. That is what the commentator writes. Atha upasana tat phala anuvadaka bhagartha sangrukhyate. Yatra yasmin virat prapti rupenake Virat upasti sadhakaha devaha. Whoever does upasana. Upasana means meditates the whole universe as one organic form. So they are the people who became the gods and then who went to heaven. Sadhyas santi devaha puratanaha virat upasti sadhakaha devaha santi tishtanti. So he says, these people who visualized in this manner, they are the people who are the devas. They are the people who are the, let us say, wise people who attained heaven. In the Yajurveda form of version of Purusha Sukta, there is one more extra mantra which says, Vedahametam Purusham Mahantam Adityavarnam Tamasastu Pare Sarvani Rupani Vichitya Dhiraha Navani Krutva Bhivadan Yadaste. A very important line is Sarvani Rupani Vichitya Dhiraha. That is that Virat Purusha. He has assumed all the forms. Sarvani Rupani. What all forms we see. See some form of a dog, we see some form of a buffalo, elephant, whatever. All these forms are the forms of the same Virat Purusha. Sarvani Rupani Vichitya Dhiraha Namani Krutva, with the different names and forms. Nama and Rupa, that is with all the different names and forms. But the essence means the existence in all the beings, the intelligence in all the beings, and the sense of happiness in all the beings. That is what we call Sat, Chit and Ananda. Sat, Chit and Ananda are the existence, the intelligence, and also the happiness in the being. So these three are the divine aspects, and name and form belong to the creation. Name and form belong to creation, whereas the other three, that is Sat, Chit, and Ananda, they are the aspects of that infinite Brahman. So that is how this visualization is done. Sarvani Rupani Vichitya Dhira. So these four varnas are mentioned in just one mantra. Brahmanosya Mukhamasit Bahu Rajanyapataha Urudadasya Tadvaishya. And there also the tense, the verb used, if we see, in the first line, it says, he Brahmana was the mouth, Kshatriya was made the shoulders, the Vaishya was made the thigh or visualized as the thigh, and Shudra is visualized as the feet. Padhyam Shudro Jayata. Padhyam, unfortunately, it also gives the meaning. From that, Panchami Vibhakti, from that Shudra came, that meaning also comes. But then that meaning should not be taken because in the first three lines, the tense is different. In the first three lines, it is different. The Vibhakti is different. When in the first three lines, the Vibhakti is different. In the fourth line, you have to follow the same Vibhakti. So that is how the commentators have said. It is just a sort of kalpana. It is a visualization. So this is what it is. And of course, it is very, very difficult to explain Purusha Sukta in such a small time, say half an hour or so. But then, for our purpose, what I said is enough. And I think we will continue. Who are these four varnas called Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra? We have to continue. Probably we'll continue in the next episode. That is because this is one very, very important thing, which is actually which has caused a lot of damage to the Indian society, or particularly the Hindu society. It has broken the Hindu society. It has created so many barriers, caste barriers as we call it. It is not exactly caste. This also we have to see. This is what is called Varna. Varna again is different from caste. So unless we have some 2, 3, 4 sessions like this, we will not be able to have at least some idea. Once I give a broad idea, then you can go deeper into this, read the original text and know more. Really, you have to go to, if you go to scholars and then read the original text, you will see that all our ideas which we have got from the whatever study material we had or whatever we have been hearing, That is something which is totally false. And then we have to see what exactly is the reality. So we'll continue this in the next episode. Thank you. Namaskar.